Hello and welcome to the official tutorial for Scratch Fusion. This was a long-awaited video. After I've created the poll, there was interest in creating a tutorial a little while back since I started this. This will be the in-depth guide on how to create a boss for Scratch Fusion, a bit of a tutorial on how to get the parry mechanic working for those of you who want to use it and don't know how to use it properly. And I will have two different guides, essentially. So I will have these are my notes. So this is a fragmented version of this whole program. If you put all these together, it makes the completed thing. Yeah, this is for people who learn better whenever I just have a bunch of notes and you don't walk through it with me. You just read the descriptions and you already know Scratch code. You don't want a direct walkthrough of me saying how each thing individually works. This is a quick little thing in case you just want to know how to put coding together for boss fights. In a little bit I will go in depth about how to actually write this code for people who don't already know what the blocks in Scratch do. That I have for this boss in particular. I just took a bunch of Scratch's basic sprites and templates that you can get from down here. Like all these. They're not bad for a starter boss. You can also go online and import things like projectiles and explosion effects. Yeah, this is the end of the part that is for people who already know how to use Scratch and already know the concepts behind Scratch. Now I'm going to go into so here we are on the My Stuff page for my Scratch profile, and from here we're going to create a copy of the Scratch Fusion 2 engine. For you, it would be remixing it and saving it to your profile. Yep. Save as a copy, and then we have our new engine, completely separate from the one I made. So from here, you got your placeholder sprite, crystal. I'm just going to replace the placeholder sprite because it's easier. But you're going to want to remove this. This is a test code right here, and this right here is your projectile that shoots out. You don't have to do anything with this unless you want to have it directional, like pointing towards the cursor, then sure.
This is gonna be a match to remember!
Currently this is what it looks like.
Fight!
All this stuff is done for you. The health bar has a second phase code in case you really want to have a second phase boss that refills the health bar to maximum. Yeah, overall this is done. And yeah, this is done. So we're going to start out by creating the boss itself. So in order to do this, I'm just going to choose a costume from Scratch's library, and we'll go with a ball because this is easy. Got a little ball right here. Simple. And we also got to do the same thing for, that's a little big. We also have to do the same thing for the placeholder for the boss intro. Gonna choose the same thing from here. We'll start with this stuff because it's easy. The presentation stuff. So you get this.
This is gonna be...
You can increase the size to whatever you feel would be best. Whichever you feel would be fitting for the intro. You can off-center it a bit to make it look better. So I'm just going to give him a frowny face. There we go. We got our placeholder boss. Got our ball guy. Gonna do the same thing with this. Frowny face is a little off-centered, but that's okay.
This is gonna be a match to remember.
Intro's all done.
Fight!
That's all you really gotta do. And now it is time to work on the boss himself. So to start out, we're going to create a basic projectile. Move him over there a little bit. Alright, let's create a very basic projectile. Now let's go with something like tic-tac shaped, because that'll be easy. Like this. Maybe shrink it down a little bit. Give it a decent size. Make sure you always center it on this little center thing, because if you don't, it'll be weird and off-centered, and it'll fly and it'll be off-centered and weird. Ready, so from here we use the when I start as clone block, because this makes it so the projectile is a projectile, and it isn't just using the same exact thing for everyone. So when I start as clone, make sure it says show, because it'll be invisible otherwise, or it won't shoot. Show, make sure it starts at the boss himself. So it'll start here. You gotta use the point towards, which is point towards stick, which is scratch, essentially. It'll point towards scratch, and you have to use the move block. Yes, you need to use the repeat until. Make sure that is used in it, because otherwise the projectile will keep following scratch until it hits him. You're going to make sure it says repeat until touching the edge, or if you'd like, scratch. And then once it does, it'll delete the clone of the object that's shot. So it'll look something like this. Very simple. Now, after that, we're going to need to make a hit code, because if it isn't hitting scratch, then what's the point of the projectile? It doesn't do any damage. What's the point of all this? Touches scratch. You gotta make it broadcast the hit broadcast. I'm gonna use the broadcast and wait. Hit. You gotta make sure it has the exclamation point at the end, because otherwise it doesn't work. I'm not sure why there's two different ones. This one is the one for taking damage. Gotta make sure you have forever also, because it'll only be active whenever the projectile is created otherwise, which is not good. You can delay it if you want, so that scratch isn't taking 100 hits per second. Make sure this comes out as when I start as clone as well. So now the projectile can hurt scratch, which is good. Now that we have this done, we're going to create the procedure in the main boss. So I'm going to have it shoot 4 projectiles, repeat 4 times, which repeats this piece of code that shoots the projectile. So create a clone of the projectile. I want to make sure there's a delay. Well, not having a delay is fine too, but it'll look like this. So I want to create a delay, because it's more traditional. This is fast. And this is slower. Depending on how much you make it wait, it shoots the projectiles in a certain speed. So we're just going to keep it like this for right now. Go. It shoots 4 projectiles. Gotta hide the main one, because if you don't hide the main one, it'll just stay there and it'll look really weird. So there we go. This is the completed attack. There we go. It works properly. And we need to make a broadcast. So for the broadcast, we're going to use projectiles. We'll just use that. So whenever we broadcast projectiles, it'll shoot off these 4 things. So next I would like to do a tutorial for a melee attack, so I'm going to have him roll towards scratch and roll back to the position he's in. So in order to do this, I'm going to create a movement. So for that we're going to go to the turn thingy and have him move towards the X variable, which is horizontal, not vertical. Do that 10 times, so he's going to do this. You can also have him do it more. We're going to adjust that in a little bit. And then for this, we'll do -30. So he rolls back to the position he's in. So overall, it'll look like this. But I want to make him roll a little bit further, so the attack is a little bit harder to dodge. So he'll do that. That's the melee attack. So I want to add a little bit of animation here. So yeah, I did that in between cuts. So he does this little bouncy animation. So in order to do this, we're going to switch his costume to this. And we'll have it wait a few 0.5 seconds. Probably 0.1 is fine, or 0.5. Whichever one is good for this. We'll do the same thing again. So it'll do that. Looks pretty good. It's a little choppy, so we're going to do this. The more animation frames you add, the less delay you want to have to make it look smoother. So we're going to do this. It's going to look like this. We can also have it at the end if we want to do it too. Plays this little animation, rolls, and then does his animation again. For this, we're going to make a command called, I'm going to make a broadcast called rollin'. Rolling. Alright, when it gets this, it'll do this attack, and roll like that. So now we got to calculate the damage for this attack. So you can do it in like 2 different ways. So I'm going to just do this real quick. Trigger scratch's movement. So in order to calculate this damage, you're going to need to have the hit broadcast again. So make sure it says if touching, because if it doesn't, it'll just keep hitting scratch when he does the animation, which isn't good. If touching, say, stick, it'll broadcast the hit. So we can do it like this, which it's not very effective. It just makes him roll like that and stop when he hits scratch if the weight is there. You can also do that, but it doesn't leave you any time in between, and it just does a lot of damage to you, which isn't really that fair. It's not really that enjoyable to fight. But another way we can do this is if we make a separate code for the rolling variable, for the rolling broadcast. Make sure it has a repeat. So just say it waits let's just say it'll wait 0.5, so 0.5 seconds, and it'll constantly be looking for scratch whenever it's waiting, like after it's not waiting. So if we hit the rolling, it should, if we make it wait shorter time, that way it won't be constantly hitting scratch. We can also do it like this. So yeah, it's fair, and it does it still does some damage, so it's still threatening to get caught in it, but it doesn't completely destroy your health. Now that we have our 2 attacks, let's create a variable. We'll just call it boss attack. We'll just call it that. Gotta set this variable, boss attack, to pick random. So you can have it anything else. You can have it pick random from anything, but I say 1 and 2 because we have 2 attacks. So let's say if attack equals 1, boss attack equals 1, boss attack equals 2. We need 2 if blocks because if this equals 1 or 2, it'll pick one or attack 1 or 2. You can also make it an if-else block, but I prefer to make it if blocks because it works better for this type of thing. We can have it broadcast rolling as attack 1. Wait 3 seconds after that because I prefer to do a regular broadcast instead of a wait broadcast, especially if you have something like this, which sometimes makes it so the attack lasts forever, which isn't good. And then projectiles, we'll have it broadcast the projectiles block. We can have it wait for that one because projectiles are simple. It'll pick one of the 2 attacks randomly, has a chance to pick the roll, or it also has a chance to pick the projectiles. So there we go. I also added a sound here, so this is how you do it if you want to add a sound to it. Just add it whenever the projectile shoots out. So yeah, this is how this works. We need to put this in the forever block, so this keeps repeating as this pattern. You can have it wait after, you can have waiting, so there's time where you can hit the boss. Or maybe he's tired and he doesn't want to attack. And we want to use the spawn health to start this, because anything else would, like if you put it under the boss broadcast, it'll make it so he restarts his pattern every time Scratch does his parry, which isn't good. Have it after spawn health. That's probably the best way to do it. So yeah, this will repeat forever until we tell him to stop. Yeah, there we go. We have a very basic boss pattern. So next, I'm going to tell you how to do parries. So this is the parry code in the regular projectile code. This is a regular projectile, and this is the parry. So this tries to detect if Scratch's parry window is nearby. This is the parry. Scratch himself isn't the parry, it's this little ring here, right here is the parry. So because of this, it'll parry the projectile back at him. So we move this over to here. If we're going to do a melee parry, which is a little bit harder to do than the projectile. So for this, we want to see if it's detecting that. I'm going to put a little weight here. Always want to put a little bit of a weight between things. So if we say he does his little roll, and we make him wait like 0.2 seconds before he does his roll back, it gives you a little time to get a little parry in. So I also took the liberty of moving the parry sound over here. Smash Bros. Parry sound, it sounds very good. Smash Bros. Perfect Shield, it sounds really nice. Satisfying. Good parry noise is always good. So if he does his roll, we can parry him when he's rolling. When he's at the end of his roll, you can parry him. Looks like that when you don't. So yeah, very basic parry. And this is the parried thing. You can make him lose health because of it. Whatever you want to do. That is how you do the parry. Now that we have all that set up, let's do what happens when you kill the boss. So you want to have a wait until variable. You want to wait until the boss is below 1 health. So you need to go to the boss HP variable, wait until that. And we'll start it with the spawn health. Have it wait like 1 second so the boss doesn't die right away. Like 1 second so the boss doesn't die right away. That should be good. So we're going to give a little animation when he dies. So I'm going to make him rotate and shrink. So one big thing to note if this is how you want to make the boss die, always start the boss out in the position you want him in and at the size you want him at. Also facing 90 degrees, or whatever direction you want him to face in. So he'll always be at default whenever he spawns in. Yeah, I'm going to hide him until the animation, the intro thing is done. So he'll appear whenever the spawn health thing happens. So this will make him repeat this a bunch of times. So this will make him shrink. Make sure you have the stop other scripts in this sprite, because if it doesn't, he'll just do his attacks and roll back and forth. It'll be weird while he's dying and Scratch is celebrating. You want to do that. Hide, and then he dies. So in total, it'll look like this. There you go. That's his death animation. So now that we have all that programmed, the last thing we really have to do is music. So in terms of music, the spawn health variable, you put your music track like that, make sure it's wait until done or it'll play the beginning all over and over again. And then you need to have, I made the boss die variable, which broadcasts when the boss dies, which stops the music and allows Scratch to do his victory thing, because the victory thing is in Scratch's sprite, it isn't in the background. So yeah, that stops it. Whenever the boss dies, it stops it. So here's
this is gonna be a match to remember. Fight!
Didn't mean to do that. I'm gonna remove that because I don't want that being.
This is gonna be a match to remember. Fight!
But yeah, that is a very basic boss. For all of you who want to know how to make bosses, from here you can kind of learn other strategies, make more projectiles, make bullet hell stuff if you want. But yeah, this is the very basic method of creating a boss. Not just for Scratch Fusion, but this type of engine in general. But yeah, mess around with stuff. See what you can come up with. But yeah, I hope that helps some of you get off the ground, learn how to get into this. Collab is still going. Hope you all can join in. Yeah, thank you all for watching, and if you learned something, put it in the comments, and like the video. Maybe send a super thanks if you really want. But yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah, I'll see you around.